Good morning or good afternoon. It's happy Sunday to everybody. There's a big Super Bowl here in the San Francisco Bay, a little later, so we're just recording this right before. Hope everybody enjoys the game and you do everything responsibly. So let's take a look at how things ended on Friday. We'll take a look at the heat map here. Microsoft was up, NVIDIA was up pretty big. All the semiconductors did well with that ARM news continue to reverberate. And let me just move my picture here. It was a little red in the oil area. CPI update came up. It was slightly better than anticipated, but inflation is still there. So Amazon and Tesla are up. So we'll stop our share here. I'm going to stop our video for a second so we can just get a clearer image. And we'll take a look at Bitcoin today. Was above 48,000 earlier. It has a little bit of a pullback. We believe that this possibly could run. We'll take a look at in our analysis section at Bitcoin among with the other images. So we'll stop the share here. And here is our annuity screen. If you don't want to worry about the ups and downs in the marketplace, an annuity may be a good place for you. It does beat index investing by about 5%. You'll never lose money in an annuity. Goes up, goes up the step, whereas the index is bob and weave, and you just can never tell when the year may be, where it's down 50% or more, like in 2008, where your 401k turned into 201k. And over here, annuities will give you a bonus sometimes, and this is how they beat index investing. So let's take a look. I'm going to stop the share here. I'm going to share a screen with the PowerPoint. Here we are. We'll go to the top here. So the Dow Jones Industrial Average, or the diamonds, they hit last week's target, and we believe they're going to pull back to 380.46. We got selling rising here, and it's kind of a leveling off, and the stochastics and the CCI commodity channel index is the hooking down. Onto the IWM, which has been the weakest over here. They had a gap up. Volume is increasing slightly, and it's heading up. We may have a couple more days heading up, and the target on that is 200.82. And we just want to send out our best wishes to AJ Monte. He's a CMT that we really follow, set up these charts. And we just, he has pneumonia. We just want to send out our prayers to him, and hopefully he recovers shortly. Here's the QQQ. AJ thinks the QQQ, once again, the rising volume over here, and the stochastics and the CCI are heading up. So I think that's going to continue up. So target there is 438.87. And on to the S&P 500. Volume looks like it's slightly down, and it's flattening out here. So I think there's going to be a pullback on the lower volume to 497.03. And we move to the VIX. VIX. So we got 6 red candles in a row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and finally got a green candle. This is bullish harami right over here. We got a turn in the CCI. It looks like we got a slight movement in the stochastics as well as starting to turn. And our target is 1548 on the VIX. And if that happens, of course, the S&P 500 would turn down. So now we take a look at this is Bitcoin. Feel that if we get rising volume on Bitcoin, it could break out here. It did go above 48, so 48,000. So we'll have to see what it does tomorrow. But if it does, it could possibly run to 60,000 or more. And we'll just see if it can do that. So let's go on. Job changes since February 2023. All job gains in the past year have been part-time workers. Full-time workers, we know the list last week, we showed 20 different companies that were slashing full-time workers and they're replacing them with part-time or other companies who are partnered up with them so they can reduce their costs and reduce the chances of having to pay severance if they did let more people go. This is a BC letter. Total U.S. household debt rises by $212 billion in Q4 2023 to a new record of $17.5 trillion. Here's some items to really take a look at. Mortgage debt, $112 billion to $12.25 trillion. Auto loans, $12 billion to $1.61 trillion. Student loans, $2 billion to $1.60 trillion. And credit card debt, $50 billion to $1.13 trillion. Total household debt in the U.S. is now up 23% in 3 years and rising rapidly. We are fighting inflation with taking on more debt. This is a dangerous signal. We'll see how the markets continue to look at this. Transition into serious delinquency, 90 plus days for auto loans by age. This is over the Great Recession, and we can just see this shooting straight up. Transition into serious delinquency, 90 plus days for credit card by age. It was shooting up here in the Great Recession in 2007, right before 2008, where everything fell down. And we got this same shooting arrow right happening now. The Russell 2000 is still in a bear market, down by 20% from prior peak in 2021. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. And here we can see the Russell 2000 has now broken on up into a new high in 2.5 years, as we continue to state. U.S. debt interest payments now exceed tax revenue. Tax revenue is rising, and now look at all this debt interest payments just taking off like a rocket. Here's a AAII sentiment survey. What direction do AAII feel? We've been talking about this for a while. The stock market will be in the next 6 months. According on February 7th, bullishness rose to 49%. Neutral stayed about the same at 28.4%. And bears dropped from 24.5 to 22.6%. So as bullishness rises, it's more tendency that we could have a pullback in the market. Here's the Dow Jones Industrial. The average must confirm each other. Dow Jones Industrial is moving up and the transports are moving down. This is according to Dow theory, meant that no important bull or bear market signal could take place unless both averages gave the same signal, thus confirming each other. They felt that both averages must exceed a previous secondary peak, confirm the inception of a continuation of a bull market. So the fourth year of a new presidential cycle tends to see the most of the gains later. Well, we're starting to see the gains already in January and February, right over in this area. A lot of times then they'll have a pullback, which people have been expecting. They had expected it for February, but February is tending to be off to a good start, and then it just kind of takes off. S&P 500 versus a world ratio index, and you can see all the money is just being poured into the S&P since 2009, even with their pullback in 2021. And then we got another pullback 2022. 2023 is starting to take control again. So here's the US equity futures positioning. Really taking off here. Net positioning in billions of dollars. We'll talk about this in a later chapter, but this is what they call pyramiding. Pyramiding is when you add to your winners in a short amount of time frame so you can get the most bang for your buck. One of the greatest investors of all time, Jesse Livermore, it's what he said: I rushed to Williamson and Brown's office and put in an order for 500 shares of Bethlehem Steel. The market was at 98. I got 500 shares at 98 to 99. After she shot right up and closed that night, I think at 114, 115, I bought 500 shares more. The next day, Bethlehem Steel was at 145, and I had my stake. But I earned it. Those 6 weeks of waiting for the right moment were the most strenuous and wearing 6 weeks I ever put in. And here is Nicholas Darvis. He was a big dancer from Eastern Europe. He would get his telexes at the different airports to the different countries he was traveling to do his dance performances. He bought 2,000 shares at 94 3/8. This is the cost. He bought 1,500 shares at 97 7/8, and he bought another 2,000 at 101 7/8 for a total of 5,500 shares. And finally, the founder of Investors Business Daily, this is how he sets up his pyramiding. He studied both Nicholas Darvis and Jesse Livermore. He'd buy 500 shares at 100, add another 300 shares at 102.50, and 200 shares at 105. Never adding when he has a loser, always adding when he has a profit. All three of these investors did it the same way. So we'll talk more about that in future, but that's our PowerPoint for the day. Let's go to our screens. First, we'll take a look at our daily routine. So up 3%, 50% increase in volume. We had 13 items. Super microcomputer just continues its torrid run here. We had a pullback here to 309, and look where it's gone. It's now at 740.29 from 309. CyberArk software. We got this little consolidation here, and then earnings hits at 406% increase, at 72% earnings surprise, gaps up, and it just continues running. Applied Materials gaps up, closes on the high, earnings in 4 days. It's kind of reacting to how ARM came out. Lam Research, also in the semiconductor field, gaps up, pretty huge volume. Some pretty good volume here back on the earnings when it came out. Sold off. Is what you want to see on lower volume. And then it wouldn't go really too much past this 10-day moving average. This means that professional money managers are generally nibbling to buy the stock at a good price. And then here it just takes off with that ARM news. JFrog in software, earnings in 3 days, breaks out at 35.46, gaps up here. We'll see if it can continue after earnings come out. Fastly, also in the cloud platform software. So we had some tight closes here, broke out right here, pulled back a couple of days, and then just continued moving higher. Monday.com, also in software, had this consolidation over here and broke out over here at 199.78, and it just seems a bit stretched right now. We'll see how they do after earnings come out on Monday. Cloudflare up 20% after they announced their earnings, 150% increase, about a 24% earnings surprise. UiPath, it's kind of breaking out here. 26.62. It got above there and pulled back on Friday, so we'll see. Their earnings aren't for 32 days. This is a big part of Kathy Wood's portfolio in the AI area. We got Make My Trip. Had a consolidation of about 4 days here, and now it's broken out to new highs again. This is a leader in vacation and leisure activities in India. Aon manufactures heating, ventilation, condition equipment in the industrial construction, breaking out over here, and we'll just see if it can continue. Earnings aren't for 17 days. Blue Owl Capital provide wealth and investment management services, breaking out on 20% earnings increase, just a 4.41% earnings surprise, closed in the lower half of its zone. And finally, Mr. Cooper. Earnings came out at about 1,000%, and they broke out above 67, actually 68.06, up 5.42%. We move on to stocks up 5% with 100% increase in volume. There's 22 items. We're not going to look at all of these. Some are the same subjects. The Berry Global Group, I believe they're in packaging. They had a big sell-off, and now they're trying to bounce back. Central Garden and Pet gapped up, closed on the low. Earnings came in at 106%. CyberArk, just looked at them. DigitalOcean offers cloud-based on demand. Looks like they broke out on Friday when they went up a little over 7%. Masonite International, Canadian manufacturers of interior and exterior doors, gaps up massively, up 35%. Earnings aren't for another 8 days. They may have gotten a merger offer, I believe, from the news. We'll just have to take a look at that. Distribution Solutions provides distribution solutions supplies for maintenance, and they broke out. 33.28 was the breakout area. Massive volume here. Pretty amazing. EverQuote in insurance. They gap out, gap up. Earnings aren't for 15 days, so they broke out on a gap up, and it just continued up. Chip MOS Technologies continues with its breakout of massive volume. This isn't your Aunt Edna buying this stock, I believe. And Lumentum Holdings. After a big sell-off, they're trying to fight back and make it back to where they were. We can just scan. Mueller Water Products continues to do well. Big gap up. Earnings came out flat, but I guess it was better than what people expected. 66% earnings surprise. Onto innovation, right in the semiconductor area. Earnings were down 32%, but that was a 5% earnings surprise, and they closed on their high. Oscar Health has been in the news. Gapped up, and they continue with another 6% boost to their shares. Here's a recent IPO, Stepstone Group. They break out, provide investment solutions, advisory services, with their earnings up 37%, and then up 10% on 200% increase in volume. We looked at Masonite, Lumentum, so Mercury Systems. Had a big sell-off, and now they're trying to fight back, up 11.7% on the day, and Cloudflare, which we looked at. So let's just take a look at what I'm currently trading. We got, I believe, a number of these have earnings next week, Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. Shopify. We have a spread trade. We did 85.90, so we rolled that over to 90.95. I believe we rolled it over to May. We have Elastic. Let me just pull that up. I believe it has locked me out. We can unlock this. I'll go back to our screens. In the meantime, we'll look at our core position, Kava. We had some blue spikes here. Some professional money managers. We bought it originally at 32, and when I think it was right here. We bought. This is the day we bought. When we pulled back on this, we added. So we bought 1,000 shares, and then we added 600 more shares here. Came back here, and then it came up here, pulled back a little bit. We just held on, bounced off the 20-day moving average. We could have added, but we didn't feel it. We wanted to at that moment. On this day, we sold the 600 shares, and on the middle of this pullback, we sold the other 1,000. And then when it started to come back over here, we added 500, and we put on options for 10 more. So if it stayed above 46, we're going to eventually execute those into the shares. We'll just keep writing this up, see if it can go back to the initial breakout, which was believe around 58, yeah, 58.10. Elf Beauty. We said this on the show as well, right around 120. We put on 4 options. And as it rode up, we just let those options initiate to 400 shares. Came up to here, pulled back. We just kind of let it ride. It came back to its 20-day moving average. We didn't decide to add right there, but when it came up to 164, we had a pullback to 155. We added two $160 options, call options. And when it pulled back, I believe it was to, it was 147.12. We added 2 more for 155. And right over here, we let them exercise when it was at 157. And then when it ran way up, so now we have 600 shares. And then when it ran way up, we sold the 2 options at 160 for a $4,000 profit. And then when it pulled back here, and then the earnings were announced after hours, actually, when the earnings went all the way to 182, we had bought another 100 shares at 167 and 50 more shares at 177. When it pulled back the next day down to 167, we sold the 50 shares. So we still have the 700 shares, and we're just going to hold on to this. And that's Elf Beauty. So we have GitLab, as we said over here, right before earnings. We had a strong feeling about it. We bought 2 options at, I believe it was 55. And then it exploded when it announced its earnings. And we've let it convert right around over here at 55 and had a little bit of a pullback here. Decided to hold as long as it held. It came down to 56.40. And it is just keeps riding higher. We did put on shorted 2 $70 calls, and right over here we took the calls off on Thursday, so we just have the 200 shares of GitLab we're going to continue holding. See how we're doing on our, guess this doesn't want to unlock. So we'll open up our Thinkorswim and just see if we can take a look at that. Let's stop the share for the moment. So we're back, and we're almost up with Thinkorswim here. So let's just share our screen first. So apps. So before we move on, let's finish our core portfolio. I had been talking about Facebook right over here. Every time it pulled back like below 290, there was another investor pop it up, and it wanted to hold around 300. I said as soon as the bond yields pulled back any, this was going to rocket, and wish we had bought right around there. We didn't buy quite yet, but we bought options at 330, but it converted into the shares. So we had 200, but two options. We had pulled back a little bit here and then just took off. We had two options at 330, and we just kind of let it ride, kind of rolled back and forth, just had a good feeling about Meta at this point, and then it went up to 390. Accidentally sold those two. I just wanted to close out the short options that I had put on at 390, and I sold them. But right before the earnings, 5 minutes before the earnings, I put on a trade 395 410. Rocketed into the earnings. So the next morning at 6:30 in the morning, I bought those short options back, so I could let it just go into the shares. And then after hours, I bought 50 of those shares right around 450. So I had 100 in shares. And then during last week, I added 15 more, 10 on a little bit of a pullback here. And then I added 5 more pretty much close to the high. So I have 465 share, 165 shares of Meta. So we looked at ELF, we looked at Kava, we looked at GitLab, and we looked at Meta. We have 300 shares of ESTC. We bottom around 121, 120, and 123. And then last week, right before earnings on MicroStrategy, I felt something was going to happen. It was pulling back, and it pulled back to 485, I believe. I had originally bought 481 over here and sold on a pullback. It went up to 525 and pulled back to 500. So I sold them, and I bought 10 shares at 493. And then I put on two options, one with a spread of 395, 510. And I was going to convert to the one naked call option. So it really jumped up over to here. So I closed the one short, and then I eventually closed the one call, and then I just have held on, and these have exercised over the weekend. So we got a little bit of a pullback, 638 after hours on Friday. So we'll just see where that opens up tomorrow. So on our options, we also bought CELH. So we bought the March 1st. $56.61 call, got 8 of those. And it's slightly in the money. So we'll just wait to see how this can go. This is a former pretty strong winner. I believe they had a split of the shares. Datadog has its earnings, I believe, on Monday after the close. And for Datadog, we bought a spread Initially, we put on 7, so we took off 3 of those, so we have 3 naked, and we have 4, 127, 141. So this is in the money. Continue to watch how that does. On DWAC, it seemed to be acting pretty well. So we put on a spread on DWAC. We did 10 on the March 1st, 45.50. So it's slightly in the money now. So we'll continue to watch that. Globant had a pullback to 228. So we put on the 250, 260. So slightly out of the money. And it is trending up ever since it touched the 50-day moving average, and now it has bounced back. Rivian. We put on the February 24th, 15.5, 20 spread on Rivian. I guess I put too many letters here. So it is now in the money. Gapped up on Friday above its 20-day moving average. Had a big strong move on Thursday as well. So it closes 16.12 on Thursday, and then it gapped up and closes 16.68. So that's Rivian. Shopify. We put on the 85.90 spread, and on Friday, we rolled it over to the 90.95. We talked about this earlier, so we've already taken our profits on that one. Square is the one that we're just not sure how this will work out, but this is on a options earnings call. Their earnings are in 11 days. It did bounce up at one point above here, went up to 71. It's had a bit of a pullback, but we're just going to hold on here. We put on, looked like Tesla started moving last week. Popped up right over here. On this day, we decided to put on the 190-200. So it's slightly in the money. The Tesla, just under $500 profit so far. And VRT, when we kind of sold out of Super Micro, we started looking around what might be close to that. So right over here, we put on an option at 57.62. So it is now above that. So we're going to have to decide what to do, either take off the shorts or to roll it, take some of our profits off the table. And Zscaler is another core holding of ours. Bought the options at 177.50 right over here, popped up, and we decided to execute them. So one of their top managers resigned, and it pulled back to 228. So when it was at 228, we put on the 230 call option, and it has jumped 230. We took off one of the call options for profit on Friday, and we'll just let the other ride. If it continues to do well, we'll just let that exercise and become another shares. At one time, we did have 200 shares, so we did take some profits. When it bumped up here, we took 100 shares off the table, and we'll get back in at a lower price as it moves up here. So that's how our trading portfolio looks. We did look at a in the education section a little bit of how to do pyramid trading. And we'll kind of leave it there. For stocks, we'll just take a quick look at how the indexes did. The financials continue to look pretty well, even though that New York Community Bank is really struggling. In energy, we got a big pullback there. Take a look at energy prices. Energy prices remain stable, but we had a big pullback in energy issues. Utilities got a little bit of a bounce, but it's under all of its moving averages right now. So I would definitely stay away from that for the time being. Real estate is bouncing a little bit. We didn't look at our dollar index, so let's take a look at what happened there on Friday. Got a little bit of a pullback. Gold pulled back as well, closed on its high. Silver is trading up, so it looks like this might be a good time to put it on. I'd wait until see what kind of move happens on Friday. Our copper trade is trending up a little bit, even though it's sold off, but sold off and then it closed on its high. So that means there was a lot of buying going on there. So that's kind of like a pink rally day. Southern Copper sold off. That's Freeport McMoran. Gap down and really sold off hard. Vale sold off and fought back towards the end. Rio did the same thing. And our Australian mining company bounced off the 200-day moving average. And our 10-year yield, wow, that was a pretty strong move off the 200-day. In the 20-year, it tried to move higher, but hit the 200-day and moved down. Take a look at IWM. It was amazing. IWM moved up because small capitalization stocks, when the yields on the treasury bonds move up, really kind of sell off. So we'll see if that can continue. We do have mentioned that we think this is going to go up maybe 2-3 more days. So we'll have to watch that. Dow Jones pull back, and we think it's going to pull back a little bit more. S&P went above $500. The equal weight in the S&P 500 rose as well, up 0.12%. NASDAQ was up nearly 1%. And the NASDAQ equal weighted was up 0.42%. So continuing on our ETFs to look. Here's the biotech bouncing up 0.25%. XBI, that was a pretty strong move, although volume was a little lacking, but that's almost a pocket pivot there. XLK continues up. It looks like we got a gap in the morning and it closed on its high. Software got a gap up and closed on its high as well, up 1.1%. Infrastructure, yeah, that broke out earlier and continues higher, up 0.7%. Semiconductors, yeah, that looks like a pocket pivot there. Continues moving higher, up 2.2%. Our airlines, looks like they broke out on Thursday and they continued higher on Friday. Out of the office, I thought that might fill the gap, be it because Expedia and one other company were down pretty hard. See what Airbnb is doing. Yeah, they sold off. Earnings are in 2 days. Industrials, they're just, looks like almost a 1 week tight they're working on. Healthcare, a little bit of a pullback. Looks like they may be working on a 1 week tight as well. Consumer discretionary pulls back to the 20-day moving average, down close to 1%. Building materials holds strong, stays above the 20-day moving average, up 0.22%. Metals and mining is pretty flat here, under the 10, 20, and 50-day moving average. Home builders, wow, they continue up with yields going up. How long that can last is a good question. And let's take a look at our Fang Yu. Big jump right there, up 5.37% in Friday. If there's one ETF, I think that has outperformed them all, it has to be the Fang Yu. Not sure if we looked at the XLC. This is where Google and Meta are. Looks like Google is fighting back after their earnings. Nice move up. They've filled the gap now. We'll see if they can continue. And just take a look around the big cap. Microsoft had a nice move up. Meta's pretty flat. Apple up slightly, but it's still under its 20 and 10, 20 and 50-day moving average. The relative strength line is kind of heading down. Netflix moved up slightly again. It's trading in a very tight range here, so this looks kind of attractive for possibly adding to a holding if you have that. NVIDIA moves up. Big move in NVIDIA. Amazon, big move out. Looks like a kind of a pocket pivot out of a nice tight range here, up 2.7%. As any of our return listeners know, I really like this tight training channel. We haven't looked at Belite Bio for a while. Had a little bit of a pullback to the 50-day moving average, and it looks like it's breaking up higher. One analyst felt like they were undervalued. We first profiled these right over in this area, right around 22. Quickly shot up 36. Had a little bit of a pullback, tight range, and then it broke out again up to 40.60. Had a pullback to the 20-day moving average. Does that ring a bell? And then it bounced off the 20-day moving average, moved up, pulled back to the 50-day, and bounced off. A lot of times, professional money manager will support a stock at the 50-day that moved back up. A lot of times this trades down in the morning and fights back at the end of the day. So there we go. One stock we profiled at the same time as Belite Bio is having some struggles. We saw this tight area right in here. It did initially tight area. No, it was back here. This tight area moved up, pulled back some more. Did break out over here, moved up to 1243, and has been heading down ever since. They had a target, I believe, around $28 for 12 months, and we'll see if it can get there. So that's our show for this weekend, for the weekend update. Hope everybody enjoys the Super Bowl. Have a great day, and go out there and continue working on your goals. and your activities, and you'll surprise yourself and others at your achievements. If you need any assistance with your financial goals, feel free to reach out to us. We'd be love to help you meet and surpass your goals. Have a great day, everyone.